and appreciate the visionary leadership and the commitment of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, whose renewed hope agenda has provided the policy foundation and the inspiration for our ongoing reforms in the tertiary education sector. I also extend our profound gratitude to the Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Tinja Alausa, OON, and the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Professor Suwaiba Saeed Ahmed, for their steadfast support, guidance, and partnership with the board and management of Tetfund. Their leadership and engagement have been instrumental in driving our shared mission to reposition tertiary education as the engine of national development. Permit me also to appreciate and commend members of the National Assembly, especially the chairman and chairperson of the committees directly supervising Tetfund, for their support in the discharge of our mandate. Distinguished participants, today's gathering is for more than a routine administrative event. It is a strategic platform for dialogue, accountability, and collaboration. It offers us the opportunity to feed back and together chart the way forward for Nigerian tertiary education system. Through this town hall, we seek to deepen public understanding of Tetfund's mandate, promote transparency in our operations, and foster a stronger bond of trust between the fund, its beneficiaries, and the Nigerian public. It is our conviction that education must not operate in isolation. It must remain connected to the aspirations of the people, the developmental goals of the nation, and the demands of a changing global order. Since the inauguration of the current Board of Trustees by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we have embraced and reform-given agenda that aligns fully with the renewed hope philosophy and agenda anchored on 3 pillars. 1, transforming tertiary education into a driver of innovation and productivity. 2, strengthening accountability, transparency, and impact measurement. 3, expanding the frontiers of research, technology, and entrepreneurship. Our overriding goal is to ensure that Tetfund interventions translate directly into tangible improvements in the quality of teaching, learning, research, while also making Nigerian graduates more competitive in the global knowledge economy. In the area of academic staff training and development, Tetfund has remained the primary vehicle for building capacity within the tertiary education system. Over the past year alone, thousands of lecturers across universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education have benefited from sponsorships for master's and doctorate degrees. Beyond the scholarships, the fund continues to support teaching practice, conference attendance, research grants, and the professional development programs, thereby ensuring that Nigerian tertiary institutions are staffed by a workforce of highly trained and globally exposed academics. This sustained investment in human capital is not just about producing scholars. It is about nurturing a generation of innovators and thought leaders capable of transforming the nation's economy and society. In the area of infrastructure, the impact of Tetfund is visible across the length and breadth of this country. We have continued to bridge infrastructural gaps by constructing and equipping modern lecture theaters, laboratories, libraries, and ICC centers in beneficiary institutions. The fund has also delivered student hostels, administrative complexes, and research facilities that have significantly improved the learning environment. Some of these projects, like accommodation, were implemented through public-private partnerships, reflecting our innovative approach to resource mobilization and project delivery. Today, campuses across Nigeria are being transformed into vibrant centers of learning and innovation, offering facilities that rival those of institutions in more developed nations. A major thrust of the current board's reform agenda is research and innovation. Recognizing that no nation can progress without investing in knowledge creation, the fund has established multipurpose zonal research laboratories and centers of excellence across 48 tertiary institutions in Nigeria. These centers are dedicated to research in key strategic areas such as biotechnology, renewable energy, food security, governance, and health sciences. These include Plateau State University, Bokos, Taraba State University, Jalingo, Bayero University, Kano, Abia State University, Oturu, University of Port Harcourt, River State, and Osun State University, Osun, to mention but a few. These facilities now serve as regional hubs for cutting-edge research, innovation, and knowledge transfer, providing solutions to some of the nation's most pressing challenges and positioning Nigeria as a knowledge producer rather than a consumer. In response to the growing need to strengthen our healthcare delivery system and expand local capacity in medical education, Tetfund has embarked on a landmark initiative, the deployment of medical simulation centers in 8 universities strategically located across the 6 geopolitical zones of the universities. The universities are 1, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria; 2, University of Maiduguri; 3, Federal University of Health Sciences, Bauchi; 4, University of Ilorin, Kwara State; 5, University of Lagos, Lagos State; 6, Federal University of Health Sciences, Ila Oragun, Osun State; 7, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Anambra State; and 8, University of Benin, Edo State. These facilities will provide medical students with practical hands-on clinical experience in controlled environments, enabling them to achieve critical competencies before encountering a real patient. This initiative will not only improve the quality of medical training, but also reduce the dependence on foreign institutions for specialized medical education. In order to enhance teaching and learning in colleges of education across the 6 geopolitical zones in the country, the Early Grade Resource Center's intervention was provided. 6 institutions were selected to benefit from their 2025 Early Grade Intervention, and they include Federal College of Education, Technical Gusau, Zamfara State, Umar Suleiman College of Education, Gashua, Yobe State, College of Education, Katsina Ala, Benue State, Federal College of Education Special, Oyo State, Federal College of Education Technical, Umuaze, Anambra State, and the College of Education Wari in Delta State. Furthermore, the Special High Impact Project for the current intervention year has been dedicated to medical colleges, and the board intends to sustain this policy in the coming years. 18 institutions were selected to benefit from the year 2025 Special High Impact Project intervention for medical colleges. Our goal is to increase the number of trained medical professionals in Nigeria and mitigate the outflow of health personnel to other countries. Some of the institutions benefiting from their 2025 special high impact project across zones are University of Ilorin, Kwara State, University of Maiduguri, Borno State, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Kaduna State, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, University of Benin, Edo State, and the University of Ibadan, Oyo State, among several others. The fund has equally prioritized the revitalization of agriculture and food security through the establishment of demonstration farms in universities of agriculture and the related institutions. These farms bridge the gap between classroom learning and the practical application, empowering students and researchers to develop innovative solutions in crop production, mechanization, and sustainable farming. By doing so, Tetfund is contributing directly to national food security and rural development while fostering entrepreneurship among young graduates. One of the most visionary achievements under the current board is the creation of innovation hubs and the entrepreneurship centers in 15 institutions nationwide. These centers establish institutions such as University of Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, University of Ibadan, Oyo State, Federal University of Dutse, Jigawa State, and the Taraba State Polytechnic. Jalingo serve as incubators for ideas, technology transfer, and the business startups. Through these hubs, we are equipping Nigerian students with the skills, creativity, and the resilience needed to thrive in a rapidly changing global economy. This initiative aligns with the national goal of creating jobs, reducing unemployment, and promoting a knowledge-driven economy. Recognizing that erratic power supply remains one of the most critical constraints for teaching, research, and innovations, the board has approved the implementation of mini-grid solar power project under the 2025 intervention cycle with an allocation of 70 billion. The project will provide renewable, sustainable, and cost-efficient energy solutions to 12 selected institutions across the country. The institutions include Nigerian Army University, Biu, Borno State, Northwest University, Kano, Ambrose Ali University, Edo State, Alban Ikoko University of Education, Owerri, Imo State, and Lagos State University, among others. By reducing dependence on the national grid and lowering energy costs, we are ensuring that our institutions operate in stable, eco-friendly, and technologically advanced environment. Distinguished guests, as we look to the future, the Board of Trustees remains committed to consolidating the gains of the past while expanding the frontiers of possibility for the future. We envision Nigerian tertiary institutions that are globally competitive, research-oriented, and innovation-driven, producing good graduates who are not only employable, but are job creators and solution providers. To achieve this, we will continue to, 1, strengthen accountability and transparency framework, expand investment in alternative energy and digital learning platforms, promote advanced research in agriculture, health, and technology, and deepen collaboration with industries and international partners to drive research, commercialization, and sustainable impact. The progress of tertiary education in Nigeria is a shared responsibility. Government alone cannot carry the burden. It requires the joint efforts of academia, industry, civil society, and our communities. This town hall meeting, therefore, is more than an event. It is a symbol of partnership, transparency, and shared vision. It reaffirms our determination to ensure that every intervention by Tetfund delivers measurable and lasting impact on the lives of our people and the future of our nation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, I once again warmly welcome you to this engagement. I encourage all participants to contribute actively to the discussions and deliberations that will follow. The insights gathered here today will shape the policies and priorities that guide our intervention going forward. May this meeting serve as a catalyst for renewed hope, shared responsibility, and transformative progress in Nigeria's tertiary education system. Thank you, and may God bless Nigeria. Amen.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. May we give him another round of applause for the Chairman of the Board of Trustees of Tetfund. Thank you. Let me quickly acknowledge here that the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, is being represented here today by Mr. Olusegun Adekunle, a former permanent secretary in the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. And while we are acknowledging and recognizing the various distinguished personalities who've turned up here, earlier on we had acknowledged the presence here of the Presidential Advisor on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Nonuga. He has also been joined now by Mr. Sunday Dari, also Special Advisor to the President on Media and Communications. We acknowledge your presence and welcome you. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as an architect, he speaks the language of physical infrastructure, and this is the product of knowledge-driven innovations. And so, at this town hall meeting, he comes to address the gathering on funding knowledge for impact. Let's put our hands together as I invite the Executive Secretary of Tetfund, Architect Sonny Echono, to now speak. Thank you very much. Let's keep the applause growing. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, former governors here present, the representative of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, distinguished senators and honorable members from the National Assembly, particularly my two chairs, the chair of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Education and Tetfund, and the chair of the House Committee on Tetfund and Other Services. Members of the Board of Trustees, led very ably by our dear chairman, a man of many parts, beholden to so many. Special advisors to Mr. President, I want to particularly express my deep appreciation for your being able to join us here today. Mr. Bayo Nanuga and Mr. Sunday Dari. The chair of various agencies in the sector, including UBEC, TRCN, are here with us. The chair of the Committee of Vice Chancellors and other Vice Chancellors are here present. Presidents and former presidents, the main purpose why we are here, our principal stakeholders, the immediate past president of ASU, Professor Oshadeke, I thank you very much for coming. And the outgoing president of COASU, I can also see smart right by you. I know our transition in the sector is very smooth, and there is continuity in service. One of the things we want to bequeath to the larger population. All our special invited guests here are present, my colleagues from Tetfund, the gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I had been assigned to talk about the impact of Tetfund interventions, but I felt better to use my 10 minutes in a different way, as an opportunity for acknowledgement and thanksgiving, for us to appreciate the wonderful work and support we have received from His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is important to put on record, and today, I do have a civil service background, so I must confess that it is not usual for us. We are taught in the service, Shagun is here that will also confirm, that we do more and talk less. And in our time, we were even made to swear to the Official Secrets Act. So we are taught the principle of anonymity. Let your work speak for you. But in today's world, if you do not blow your trumpet, nobody will blow it for you. However, I'm aware that my minister will be coming to this stage. And my chairman has already given you an insight into some of the things that we are doing. So I'll focus more on how this president has helped to bring about the type of reforms and changes that you are witnessing and that you will continue to see in the days ahead. And to underline, I'm not somebody given to flattery and just praise singing. So I'll be giving a few examples of how I came to that conclusion. The first, you will recall that at the inception of this administration, the previous administration had approved an increase in education tax from 2.5% to 3%. That was done, and I can tell you a whole story behind that. How we were able to convince the former president to go to London, attend the conference, and in the process, we got a $125 million grant, not loan, from the Global Partnership for Education in return for a commitment to increase funding for education. And the president signed off on it. And through the finance bill, I think 2020, this was endorsed by the National Assembly. But there was some disquiet, particularly from the private sector and others who felt that there was a need to go back to 2.5%. And a lot of pressure was born. So at the beginning of this administration, there was a review of the Finance Act. And there was so much trepidation in the sector that this clamor to go back to 2.5% was going to happen. But when it got to Mr. President, I was told that the first thing, when he was given the summary of what was coming, was on the education going back to 2.5%. He just deleted it without even talking. And we were left with our 3%. That is a sign of somebody who had a deep commitment to education. But there is even something more important, something more deep that had to do with my very personal first working meeting with him. I felt troubled that you are aware that in the tax bill, the original bill as crafted, was going to result in a sunset. There was a sunset clause that was going to result in the end of Tetfund by 2030. There were some permutations that were done, reduction in the amount to a particular percentage in 2026, 2027, and ultimately by 2030, Tetfund will cease to exist. I and the former Minister for Education tried some consultations, made some road work, and we realized that we were not making too much headway. So I braved it, and I sought audience with Mr. President. With some brevity, I also pushed my luck and requested that the audience should be in private, either at the residence or any venue of his choice. Both requests were granted. And when I saw Mr. President, I told him I came to discuss a very important matter concerning Tetfund. And he said, everybody wants your job, I know that. I said, no, that is not why I came, sir. And I told Mr. President, there are very serious implications in a very good act that you brought up, the tax bill. But I don't want you to be the president that will go down in history. Under your reign, under your tenure, during your time, Tetfund was brought to an end. And there are a number of reasons for this. He said, but they told me you are even wasting the money. So I said, no, Mr. President. It is not possible that we are wasting the money. Somebody can accuse me of being stingy, but you cannot accuse me of being wasteful. And he said, that is true. My friend, he mentioned the name of the friend, told me a lot about you. But I know there are better ways that we need to use that money. He told me someone sent him a video of a university hostel that was in very deplorable condition. Luckily for me, I had seen that hostel too. And I told him, sir, there are a lot of promises I can make for you. But this one, except you decide, I won't be able to do anything about it. Because under our current disbursement guidelines, it's only Tetfund projects that are 5 years old that we can commit money to repair. Some of these hostels you are seeing are part of the hostels we occupied when we were in school. He said, but how can we be building new hostels when the existing ones are in deplorable condition? Why would we be putting new buildings when you can't maintain the existing ones? So I said that under the Tetfund Act, it's only Mr. President that can give us direction on how we should begin to refocus. He said, is that so? And I said, yes. He said, okay, no problem. We should start focusing on rehabilitating the legacy projects in our universities. He now rolled out 6 new initiatives that he believes we should be able to refocus our intervention lines. The first, which is a demonstration of his love for Nigerian students. And I want the students listening to me today to take note of that. The president said he wanted us to build hostels, enough hostels, livable hostels, decent hostels, that you cannot put students in dilapidated conditions and expect them to come out and behave like well-brought-up, well-bred children. That henceforth, we should do hostels. And I'm going to be inviting the public. As I speak, there are 24 Renewed Hope Initiative hostels all across our country coming up. We'll be commissioning 2 of them before the end of the year in Akwa Ibom and in Warri. And others are coming up. He asked us to double it with the Honorable Minister. So next year, we are going to take it to about 72 different institutions having modern hostel facilities all across our campuses. Still on students, he said these children complained that they asked that NANS were here. And they complained about campus transportation. That as a gesture, he's going to be giving them some CNG buses. But he also wants Tetfund to do something about it. And that is why this year we have already launched a program. The actual launching of the vehicles will be done before the end of the year. We are going to be launching campus transportation for all our students. There are going to be electric vehicles. They have charging points on their campuses. We are going to be involving the student union government, even in the administration of those. It will almost come at very, very minimal cost to students so that they can move freely and more effectively within their campuses all through the country. The chair of the Board of Trustees have already spoken to you about the issue of power. Many of our vice chancellors have been screaming and crying. They receive next to nothing as overhead cost provisions in their appropriation. Yet, they are giving huge energy bills because universities, polytechnics, and colleges are huge communities. Some have as many as 50,000 population. And you can imagine students scholars, the lecturers, and everybody living in those communities. Even the essence of education, laboratories, workshops, if tools and equipment cannot be put to work, internet services are not available, then what is the purpose of education? So he asked us to invest massively, and he assured us he was going to explore other sources, and he's doing just that. As we speak, beside the 70 billion that Tetfund is committing to this, Mr. President has mobilized more than 200 billion additional funding through other sources to address the issue of power on our campuses. And it is ongoing. Projects are being commissioned. I realized the most recent one was in Owerri, recently commissioned. Maiduguri is waiting, Calabar is waiting. I think University of Abuja are almost there. And so many other universities are going to be having independent power so that when you are talking about band A, band D, band C, it is not our language. So Mr. President also talked about the welfare of staff. He complained about the fact that there are so many of the people we sponsor overseas that have absconded, and he felt it was unfair. But he still felt a commitment to be able to sustain, keep us competitive, that we need to be catching up, know what is happening around the world. And he tasked us, and the minister also, that we should work out a framework, starting from a hard line, that we should suspend those who are going abroad, but that we shouldn't do it. I'm giving a secret out now. He said we should also know the very sensitive, the critical areas where we need to compete. For those ones, we should let them go. But we should make sure we bond them properly to ensure that we don't waste the money. When we train people, they come back and put the knowledge here and transfer it to our children. So there are so many things I can say here and talk about what Mr. President has done for us. By standing strongly for us, he promised that he was going to increase, and that is what happened. The members of the National Assembly here will confirm that the development levy for which we are going to be earning half of the total allocation was originally 2% that was agreed upon. It was Mr. President, in keeping with his promise, that said, no, it cannot be 2%, it has to be 4%. So he doubled it, and that is what was passed by the National Assembly. So a grateful education sector, we want to give and express our appreciation to Mr. President. We are grateful for his guidance, for his leadership, for his compassion as a compassionate leader, as the father of our nation, a lover of our students, a man who has a big champion of the youth of this country. Anybody can see that in all that he does. Right from his days as governor of Lagos State, where he groomed very young men and women, gave them responsibility, nurtured them to become big leaders today. Bayo is one of them here, even though he was in the media at the time. And there's quite a good number of them that are with us. You will also acknowledge that even today, he has more youths on his cabinet than any government that we have ever had in this country as at today. So, Mr. President, as you continue to invest in the future of Nigerians, believing and knowing that it is they that will be our true assets. Nigeria has a demographic dividend. We are very youthful people, youthful population, young people, very eager to learn. If we prepare them well, if we make the sacrifice of investing in them, we will fill the skills gap around the globe. I deliberately left a few things for the Honorable Minister to talk about because I know he will talk about skills and TVET to you. But I will close with what I call the flagship of our intervention and Mr. President's intervention, and that is the student loan scheme. A further demonstration of his compassion is when he said to us, and he gave a very personal example of himself. And he said, under no condition should any Nigerian child be denied access to education, be denied access to skills and knowledge that he will use to feed himself and his family and contribute to national development on account of the economic status of their parents or their guardians. That is why today we have one of the most robust national student loans schemes in the world today. It is growing every day, and now there is no excuse from going to school anymore. The moment you have admission to a tertiary institutions, you are eligible. And you can take the loan that you don't have to pay until you finish school, and on the condition that you get work to do. I enjoin all parents to take advantage, ensure that we prepare our youths for the future. I will pause here, and I will crave the indulgence of everybody in the hall that in appreciation for all he has done for the education and continues to do, can we please rise and applaud the President of the Federal Republic, the father of our nation, the leader of our government, His Excellency, Distinguished Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. I thank you very much, and God bless you. And may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Executive Secretary of Tetfund, Architect Sonny Echono. Let's keep the applause going as he returns to his seat. Thank you so very much. We appreciate you. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me, at this point, begin to introduce a number of goodwill messages been delivered here at this town hall meeting. And we'll start off by inviting the chairman of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Education, distinguished Senator Dandute Muntari Mohammed, who will now deliver his message. Thank you. Let's appreciate him as he comes to the microphone.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, our former governors, the Chairman, Board of Trustees of Tetfund, Your Excellency, the former Governor of Katsina State, here present, my respected senators here present, the Chair's House Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Tetfund, and her respected colleagues, the critical stakeholders here present from the various universities, polytechnics, and federal colleges of education, the Board of Trustees who, under the wisdom of the chairman, has created this very important town hall meeting today is worthy of praise. Let me stand on all the existing protocol. I am honored and delighted to be here today at this memorable event and significant national town hall meeting organized by the Tertiary Education Trust Fund to discuss its mandate, achievement, and impact on tertiary education in Nigeria. As chairman of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Tetfund, and our esteemed leadership under the President of the Senate, President Goodwill Apabio, I am delighted to be part of this gathering of brilliant mind policy makers and stakeholders in tertiary education. Tetfund has been instrumental in revitalizing our tertiary education sector through its focused intervention from infrastructure development, research funding, and academic staff training. Its effort has significantly enhanced the quality of education in Nigeria. The fund mandate is multi-effect, and its achievements are noteworthy, from constructing and renovating facilities to fund research projects and sponsoring academic staff for advanced degrees. It has also made a tangible impact on our tertiary institutions. This intervention has not only improved the learning environment, but also enhanced the capacity of our institution to produce globally competitive graduates. The impact of its intervention is evident in the improved quality of education, increased research output, and enhanced capacity of our tertiary institutions. Tetfund effort has also promoted sustainable development, driving national growth and development. I am confident that with continued support and funding, it will continue to play a pivotal role in shaping the future of our tertiary institutions. Today, I urge all the stakeholders to continue supporting the fund effort by working together to address the challenges facing our tertiary education sector and ensure that our institution produce graduates who can compete globally. I pledge the commitment of the committee and the National Assembly in supporting the Renew Hope agenda of Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, through Tetfund mandate and ensuring that our tertiary institutions receive the necessary support to thrive. As what ES said, they have done a very significant innovative programs in Tetfund, and under the leadership of the National Assembly, the new tax reform, new tax bill has increased the funding of Tetfund from the development fund to 50%, and also the issue of NEL fund, which is a very important program to support education, because our children cannot go to school without paying the school fees and also feeding upkeep, which were created. They have 15% in this new tax bill. And I want to assure you that we are very grateful with the leadership of the Board of Trustees. Everybody knows how our leader, who is a listening leader and also a former Speaker of the National Assembly, Right Honorable Amin Bello Masari, has made this initiative of making a critical stakeholders interactive session and need assessment of most of the various institutions of the country so that they can achieve a sustainable development in educational sector. So I would like to express my appreciation to the management and staff of Tetfund under the ES architect Sonny Ochonu. This town hall meeting, I am confident that will enlighten Nigeria on the mandate of the fund and its achievement and impact on tertiary education. And the gathering will provide platform for stakeholders to engage in meaningful discussion to shape the future of our tertiary sector. And I want to sincerely appreciate the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces for having a listening eye to listen to the various critical stakeholders, both from the ministry and the agency. Thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Distinguished Senator Dandute Muntari Mohammed, who's chairman of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Education. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to take out a moment to acknowledge that the Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, has been represented here today by the Director General, CEO of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, Dr. Muhammad Bulama, who's with us here. Thank you very much. Let me also acknowledge the presence here of Honorable Sunday Adepoju, who's a member of the Board of Trustees representing the Southwest. Thank you very much. We appreciate your presence. Thank you. We've listened to the chairman of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Education. Let me now invite the chair of the House of Representatives Committee on Tetfund and Other Services. Let's put our hands together for Honorable Princess Mariam Onoha as she comes to address us. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Your Excellency, the former Governor of Katsina State, Chairman, Board of Trustees, Tetfund, Right Honorable Aminu Bello Masari, Your Excellency, former governors here present, my colleague at the Senate, distinguished Senator Dan Duse, and Chair, Tertiary Trust Fund and Institutions, distinguished senators, distinguished members, House of Reps, other members of the Board of Trustees, the Executive Secretary, Tetfund, Architect Sonny Echono, my own senior brother, and your management team. Let me also recognize heads of tertiary institutions here present, and the former or immediate past president of ASU and COESU. I like that you are here with us today on this very important town hall meeting, first of its kind. I'd like to start my goodwill message by appreciating Speaker, House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD, for finding me worthy by the leave of the leadership and members of the Committee on Tetfund to chair this committee. I want to appreciate the audience and for your kind attention for making out time to attend this very important gathering, despite today being a weekday. Tetfund, as we all know, is an interventionist agency, and it was born out of the cry of ASU for the need to improve and increase the infrastructure gap in our learning institutions. Over the years, the funding has become increased to the point that every institution you go to today, the only towering projects that you see there are Tetfund projects. And in our oversight visits, the House can authoritatively confirm that nearly every beneficiary institution has had an increasing number of projects over the years to make for the allocations and that has been made in that sector. This is going to the point that Tetfund is very crucial and instrumental to the development of infrastructure in our tertiary institutions. And I thank Mr. President for excluding the sunset clause and the reform agenda of the bill when it came to the House. The National Assembly has been a partner in progress. The House of Representatives and the House Committee on Tetfund and Other Services also stood behind the need to increase and continue the funding for Tetfund. If the President, and since he has graciously approved and supported funding to Tetfund or tertiary institutions through Tetfund, has allowed the funding to continue, then it would not have been ideal to kill the same baby that you have given birth to. And so I appreciate His Excellency, Mr. President, the father of the nation, for listening, because he is a listening president, and allowing that we do not throw away the baby with the bathing water. Agreed, there are issues, there are funding challenges, there may be some gaps with utilization and accountability. But with increased funding and oversight and fora such as what the chairman has convened, those issues can be straightened, those challenges can be overhauled to give us an improved and better Tetfund for tomorrow. So I liked this town hall meeting, and I appreciate the chairman of the Board of Trustees for convening it, and this makes for transparency, collaboration, innovative and participatory governance. This is in line with National Assembly tenets of renewed accountability and public sector efficiency. Let me sign off by welcoming us to this important meeting yet again and ask us to bring our experiences to the fore, put our ideas on the table. This is not a lecture series. I believe this is a tete-a-tete. It's an interactive session, and it is geared towards getting a better Tetfund for all of us that is inclusive of every ideas. While we oftentimes bask in the euphoria of Abraham Lincoln's statement, government of the people, for the people, and by the people, and why we need more, may we also be reminded by that of W.F. Kennedy, where we are implored to think not just what the country will do for us, but on what we can do for the country. And on that note, I'd like to remind the general public that Tetfund thrives only on taxes. And as responsible citizens, may we always, always be challenged to pay our taxes, because that is the only way the fund will continue to work. Let me also appreciate His Excellency the President for Nelfund and the fact that Tetfund has always come to the rescue. Nelfund has not just been an answer to many Nigerians. It has reduced the gap and removed a lot of high blood pressure from many households, where many families many women would have become widows by the thinking of school fees, rising school fees every year. Nelfund and the President's intervention through that scheme has reduced that. And for me, it's an indicator of an improvement in our development and economic sector. So we have less burden and less pressure on Nigerian women and their children. So thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for all you do for us. Thank you, Architect Sonia Echono, for running an all-inclusive tertiary education trust fund. Thank you, our chairman. We at the National Assembly and House of Reps will continue to offer our support and oversight, and more importantly, legislative intervention when the need arises. Thank you very much, and do have a wonderful deliberation. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Honorable Princess Mariam Onoha, Chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Tetfund and Other Services. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in her speech, she disclosed that from oversight functions, the towering structures that you see in tertiary institutions are mainly Tetfund projects. I thought that deserves a warm round of applause for Tetfund. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's a town hall meeting put together by the Tetfund Board of Trustees. This town hall meeting, I assure you, has backing from all facets of national life. Legislative, certainly. The executive, definitely. And even along party lines, because I can say to you that the All Progressives Congress, the governing party in the country today, has a very powerful presence at this meeting. let me acknowledge the presence here of the National Secretary of the APC, distinguished Senator Surajuddin Ajibola Bashiru, PhD, who's here with us. And he's not just alone. We have Professor Abdul Karim A. Kana, SAN, Deputy National Secretary of the APC, is also here with us. And not just him alone, Honorable Kumu, the Deputy National Financial Secretary, is here. And, of course, Barrister Murtala Kankia, the National Legal Advisor of the APC, is also here with us. Thank you so very much. And now, for the purpose of giving a goodwill message, let me now invite the representative of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, has been represented here by Mr. Olusegun Adekunle, former Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Let's appreciate Mr. Adekunle as he comes to deliver the message from the SGF. Thank you very much.
Distinguished senators here present, honorable members of the House of Representatives, and I particularly recognize the chair, Senate Committee on Tertiary Education, and the chair, House Committee on Tetfund and other services. Your Excellencies, former governors, the chairman of the Board of Trustees, members of the Board of Trustees, my brother, friend, and colleague, Architect Echono, the Executive Secretary, senior officials of government present, stakeholders, and chair of the Committee of Vice Chancellors. Very good morning to us all. I stand before you to represent the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, distinguished Senator George Akume, who is unable to join us this morning due to other exigencies. And he has requested that I represent him, and he also sent a text that I will read. It gives me great pleasure to join you at this important town hall meeting, convened to enlighten Nigerians on the mandate, the achievements, and the impact of Tertiary Education Trust Fund. It is also an occasion to draw feedbacks through constructive dialogue with stakeholders. This town hall initiative is a combination of a reporting session and an accountability forum. It's also a reaffirmation of government's commitment to the social contract of transforming our tertiary education sector into a veritable engine of human capital development and national productivity. Since its establishment in 2011 as a successor to the ETF, Tetfund has become one of the most successful intervention agencies in Nigeria's public sector reform trajectory. Through sustained funding from the education tax, Tetfund has invested hundreds of billions of naira in revitalizing public tertiary institutions across the nation. These interventions have strengthened institutional capacity, improved teaching and learning outcomes, and repositioned tertiary institutions as centers of innovation and development. Tetfund's impact embodies public value creation, exemplified by the effective use of public resources to deliver tangible benefits that improve citizens' lives and our national competitiveness. Tetfund's activities are fully aligned with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. This agenda prioritizes human capital development, job creation, and economic competitiveness through education and skills. We all know that education is the foundation upon which every other sector of national development rests, be it technology, health, agriculture, infrastructure, or security. The Renewed Hope Agenda's vision of building a skilled, productive, and innovative population finds practical expression in Tetfund's sustained investment in research, innovation, and institutional excellence. 5 years to the target line of the SDGs, Tetfund directly supports the SDG 4, which is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. It also intersects with SDG 8, SDG 9, and SDG 17. While we are gathered here today to celebrate Tetfund's milestones and also x-ray all its shortcomings, we must recognize that the future demands deeper institutional synergy and a supportive policy environment. I would therefore mention just 3 policy pathways to sustain and scale up its impact. One is to strengthen policy alignment and coordination, to institutionalize research to industry linkages, and to enhance transparency, inclusivity, and impact measurement. Education remains the surest path to sustain prosperity and national stability. And the Renewed Hope Agenda recognizes that every naira invested in education is an investment in Nigeria's peace, productivity, and progress. Tetfund is therefore not just an intervention agency. It is a strategic instrument of national transformation that enables our youth to compete globally, reduce poverty, and build a knowledge-driven economy that can sustain democratic governance and inclusive growth. In conclusion, I appeal to all stakeholders to continue to support Tetfund as it advances this noble mission. Let us strengthen policy coherence, promote accountability, and ensure that every intervention translates to measurable educational and socio-economic outcomes. On behalf of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I commend the leadership and the board, the management and staff of Tetfund. I also commend our tertiary institutions and all stakeholders who are contributing to building the Nigeria of our collective dreams, where our hopes will translate to realized promise through education. Thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Olusegun Adekunle, standing in for the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume. Thank you once again. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, is unable to be here However, he has asked the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, Dr. Mohammed Bulama, to stand in for him. I do now invite Dr. Bulama to present the Honorable Minister's message. Let's appreciate Dr. Bulama as he comes up. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The Right Honorable Aminu Bello Masari, Your Excellency, former Governor of Katsina State, Chairman, Board of Trustees of Tetfund, Your Excellencies, former governors here present, honorable members of the Chairman, Senate Committee, the Chairman, House Committee on the Tertiary Education, other members of the National Assembly here present, the Executive Secretary of Tetfund, the special advisors to Mr. President, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to stand on the already existing protocol. I'm here to represent my boss, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris, who unfortunately is unable to be here. As a matter of fact, he was about setting out for this venue when another important call to national duty came to him. And I was only informed at about 11:15 or thereabouts to come here to represent him. So the Honorable Minister sends his regrets that he's not here. He really wanted to be here, but unfortunately, he couldn't make it. However, he has asked me to congratulate the Tetfund for doing a very beautiful and impactful job since its creation during the military era, I think around 1990 or thereabouts, if my memory is correct. The Tetfund has done a very wonderful job. The Ministry of Information and National Orientation acknowledges that. And the minister has also asked me to congratulate the Tetfund for organizing this very, very important forum to sensitize Nigerians and all other stakeholders to assist in the execution of the very important mandate of the Tetfund. He has also asked me to assure the Tetfund of all the support of all the agencies in the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation to Tetfund, that these agencies are ready to collaborate with Tetfund to bring the activities of the Tetfund to the doorsteps of Nigerians every day, 24 hours for 7 days of the week. So that includes the FRCN, NTA, Voice of Nigeria, National Orientations Agency, News Agency of Nigeria, the Nigerian Press Council, the NBC, that's National Broadcasting Commission, and the ARCON. So he has asked me to say that we look forward to, we already have a good relationship with Tetfund, but we are ready to upscale that relationship to the next level. So once again, the minister has asked me to congratulate the Tetfund to continue doing the beautiful work that the Tetfund has been doing over these 3 or 4 decades. On a personal note, I stand proudly tall to acknowledge what the Tetfund is doing, because as chairman of ASU at the University of Maiduguri in the 80s and, in the 90s, in the mid-90s or thereabouts, I was part of the struggle to ensure the establishment of the Tetfund. Our president at that time was Professor Tahiru Jega, and I think it's common knowledge that it was under his leadership of ASU that this very important interventionist agency came into being. So those of us who were at the forefront of that struggle would always remain very, very proud of what Tetfund is doing, because we have been vindicated. It's a vindication for us. The military didn't like it, but we forced them to accept it, and Tetfund has been established, and as they say, the rest is history. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bulama, Director General, FRCN, standing in for the Honorable Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris. And as he said on a personal note, he said he stands tall to attest to what Tetfund has done. I take that both metaphorically and physically, seeing he's a tall man. Thank you once again, DG. Your Excellencies, may I quickly acknowledge the presence here of the Chairman, Governing Board of the Federal University of Agriculture, MUBI, Hajia Rukayatu Abdul Karim Gurin, PhD. Thank you for being here with us. We acknowledge you. Thanks. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there are testimonies by selected institutions about the relevance and the place of Tetfund in tertiary education. So I ask you now to sit back and watch this special documentary that will bring you those testimonies. So the technical crew, if we're ready, let's go.
Between potential and prosperity, in Nigeria, that bridge. In every great nation, education is the bridge between promise and progress, between potential and prosperity. In Nigeria, that bridge is being rebuilt and strengthened under the Renew Hope initiative of His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. At the heart of this transformation stands the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, Tetfund, the federal government's leading intervention agency for higher education.
As part of its mandate, I think Tetfund has really been doing marvelously well. I could wonder if there is no Tetfund, how our institutions would look like. Because when you go to our institutions, universities and polytechnics, you see wonderful edifices, you see innovations, buildings that have been, sponsored by Tetfund, and those facilities to a greater extent has enhanced learning.
Established in 1993 as the Education Tax Fund, ETF, and transformed into the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, Tetfund, in 2011. Its mission remains clear: to restore, rehabilitate, and consolidate a Nigerian's tertiary education system. Through dedicated funding and effective project management, Tetfund has become a pillar of Nigerians' academic progress.
If you go through all the campuses in Nigeria, you can not but attest to the fact that without Tetfund, I'm sure so many universities, so many polytechnics, so many colleges of education would have been wobbling on their feet. But because of these interventions, you discover that we have a lot of facilities that are present and functional and adequate because of their intervention, their yearly intervention.
Being in academia, I benefited twice. First, it was my master's program that was sponsored by Tetfund. Afterwards, a few years later, I also got sponsorship for my PhD program. So it has been amazing. After the intervention, after I got the PhD, the communication became better with me and my students, my colleagues in the department, because you're better informed than what it used to be in the past. The techniques you have learned are better than what you have had in the past.
I would say the most interesting part of these interventions that I have personally enjoyed is the fact that I've had the privilege of writing a book sponsored by Tetfund, effective communication and technical report writing. It's here in the school library for students. Of course, it's not for sale, but the good thing is that it is my work sponsored by Tetfund.
In May 2023, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu ushered in a new era.
I, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful.
A renewed hope for education, innovation, and opportunity, guided by the Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Maruf Tunji Alausa, and the Tetfund Board Chairman, Right Honorable Aminu Bello Masari. The fund embraced a bold transformation agenda.
I'm highly inspired by the evidently deliberate intention and reforms of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, to the specific effort of Tetfund to encourage our academia to respond to core critical needs for our national development.
A recognition of the role of research in national development, that the need to address the paucity of funds necessary to facilitate cutting-edge research in the areas of national priorities, that the Board of Trustees of Tetfund introduced the National Research Fund, NRF, intervention to fund impactful research that will contribute to national developmental efforts as well as tackle global challenges.
Across Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones, multidisciplinary research laboratories are advancing cutting-edge discoveries, ensuring our researchers are no longer taking their samples abroad. In 45 institutions, innovation hubs and entrepreneurship centers are nurturing thinkers and creators, producing over 200 prototypes ready for commercialization under the TEDFAIR and R4I program initiatives.
Tetfund is funding the establishment of innovation hubs and entrepreneurship centers in our beneficiary institutions in phases. We started this program in 2023 with 12 beneficiary institutions, and for these, all the equipment are in place. Last year, we commenced the process for an additional 18 institutions. And in continuation of the phase development program, another 18 institutions will be coming on stream in 2025. That will bring a total of 48 so far that will be providing these facilities and replicating something similar to what we have.
Through this program, powered by Tetfund, in collaboration with Innovate Hub, we have been equipped with the tools and strategies to translate research into tangible, impactful innovations.
Every policy begins and ends with the student. Through new hostels, eco-friendly campus transportation, digital experience centers, Tetfund is ensuring no Nigerian child is left behind.
His Excellencies, Nigerian students have never had it good like we have it now. In the current administration of His Excellency, the President of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We really appreciate his efforts in ensuring that students have adequate facilities across campuses through the Tetfund. And we are very much aware that he has injected so much money into Tetfund to ensure that the welfare of Nigerian students is protected and that students maximize the opportunities given to them to go to school and to learn. Excellency, sir, we can have students on campus, numerous students on campus. We can have thousands of lecturers on campus and management on campus. But if we do not have the infrastructural facilities, believe me that academic education learning will not be effective and efficient. It is on this note that we wish to thank the Tetfund through your leadership for helping us, for ensuring that this institution have all the basic facilities students need to ensure that learning is efficient.
With over 100 billion naira dedicated to 18 medical colleges, Nigeria is training the next generation of doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and dentists, with medical simulation centers now redefining learning, improving patient safety, and preparing skilled professionals for tomorrow.
The Federal Ministry of Education, working closely with the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, has designed the Tetfund Impact Intervention Project for medical schools rehabilitation across the 6 geopolitical zones. This project is a deliberate response to the urgent need to expand our medical training capacity by rehabilitating and modernizing key infrastructures, lecture theaters, laboratories, hostels, clinical learning environment to significantly increase enrollment in medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and nursing programs across these selected 18 universities.
Today's event marks yet another bold step in our collective commitment to reposition Nigeria's medical education system and strengthen our national healthcare delivery through sustainable investment in infrastructure, research, and academic excellence.
But if we take a minimum of 5 years investing in medical sciences, the difference will be very clear. We will no longer be afraid of JAPA with regards to medical sciences. We will produce more, export more, especially to African and other countries, and earn more foreign exchange for our country.
The provision of critical manpower in the health sector remains a huge challenge and is often exacerbated by the JAPA syndrome. The problems of insufficient and unqualified medical personnel leading to high doctor-patient ratio and all the other indices that we are not very proud of have lingered for far too long. The challenges of ill-equipped medical facilities have also persisted. It is for these reasons that intervention is considered not only important, but also timely.
Powering education sustainably, Tetfund and the Rural Electrification Agency are installing solar solutions across campuses. From Eboyin to Jigawa, Akwa Ibom to Gombe, thousands of iconic projects are being completed, providing the foundation.
We need change agents, motivators. 2, we need consistency and congruency of goals. When people are committed, if you go there, if you look at the composition of the people who are involved in research there, it's not all these mundane Nigerian considerations. You see people from all over the country who are there working together harmoniously, rendering services. Do you know that state governments are even doing signing agreements with them to be taking Kano State government, for example, 30 patients for specific operations on very difficult operations that they normally would take to India.
state government are even sponsoring people to go there to go and do operations. This is the type of thing we do. It also fosters national integration and ensures that we use our best brains here.
With over 8,000 scholars trained for higher degrees in partnership between polytechnics and artisans, Tetfund is blending knowledge with craftsmanship, aligning education with employment.
We must innovate, we must create, we must make new products, and through that, we must create wealth.
In 2024, the first National Research Fair, TEDFair, showcased homegrown researchers and innovations.
I sold everything, including my shoes, to convert my ideas into a stage where somebody will even look at me and listen to me.
What we ask Tetfund to do is, Tetfund fund prototyping. You finish a research, you want to do the prototype. You need funding to do that. Tetfund will be able to have a funding window for prototyping that has scalability and market acceptability.
We need to look at our education. We need to look at our curriculum. That MSc or PhD program, what is it for? Is it for you to publish your papers on Thomson Reuters, or for you to begin to have products that can be patented and then over the period go to the market?
Within our challenges, we must continue to see the opportunities. Then you emphasize the need for data. There is no way we can make progress if we don't have data. The need for collaboration, and the last bit of your statement in relation to that is for the critical stakeholders within government to continue to work together collaboratively.
We would love to see a situation whereby participants from various institutions are increased in number. For me, I am one person impacted. We pray to God Almighty that the federal government of Nigeria will continue to support Tetfund 100%. And we thank you for bridging the gap between research and enterprise. We believe that this will boost the economy of Nigeria through research.
While 130 new academic textbooks enrich libraries nationwide, written by Nigerian scholars for Nigerian students.
Ahmed Tinubu, as fervent, is a fervent believer in developing the human capital of our country. And when you talk about human capital, what do you talk about? Education, health, and social protection. And this president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has been a president in the last 30 years. If you compare what this president has spent, has budgeted, has invested in education, health, and social protection, it's second to none.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has shown a deep commitment to the advancement of education, recognizing its fundamental role in driving national growth. This commitment is reflected in the prioritization of funding and policy reforms aimed at enhancing content development and building the capacity of our public tertiary educational institutions.
From lecture halls to laboratories.
Thank you so very much. Testimonies, acknowledging the place of Tetfund in Nigeria's tertiary education. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there are still a number of remarks that will be given at today's town hall meeting. Let me at this point now invite the Chairman, Committee of Vice Chancellors, Professor Tanko Ishaya, to now speak to us at this town hall meeting. Let's appreciate the Chairman of the Committee of Vice Chancellors as it comes to the podium, Professor Tanko Ishaya. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, the Chairman Board of Trustees of Tetfund, Your Excellency, Right Honorable Amin Bello Masari, CFR, and all the members of the Tetfund BOT, the distinguished chairman of the Senate Committee on Tetfund, or Tertiary Education, distinguished Senator Danduse Masari Mohammed, all the distinguished senators here present, the Honorable Chairman, House Committee on Tetfund and Other Services, Princess Miriam Onoha, the Executive Secretary of Tetfund, and indeed all the management staff of Tetfund. Let me acknowledge my boss, who is a presenter at today's occasion, the former Executive Secretary of NUC, Professor Abubakar Rashid Adamu. The immediate past president of ASU, Professor Osedeke, and my immediate past chairman is here, Professor Sagir Abbas, who handed over to me as the chairman of the Committee of Vice Chancellors. Esteemed and distinguished guests here present, the honorable ministers that are here, present and ably represented, the esteemed vice chancellors, rectors, provosts, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen of the press, good afternoon. It is with great honor and a deep sense of commitment to national development that I bring warm greetings to this very important national engagement, the Tetfund National Town Hall meeting from the Committee of Vice Chancellors of Nigerian University. I congratulate the chairman of the Board of Trustees and indeed Tetfund for organizing this very, very important and crucial meeting, a stakeholder meeting. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, without Tetfund, perhaps I wouldn't have been the chairman of Vice Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. Because perhaps Nigerian universities will not have existed. And I'm saying this with all sense of seriousness. If you go around universities, colleges of education, polytechnics, you will find out that all campuses now are Tetfund campuses of universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, and monotechnics. You will hardly see any single infrastructure that is not tagged Tetfund intervention of one form or the other. And that is why I said without Tetfund, Nigerian universities may not have existed. And if they existed, they would probably have been glorified secondary schools. And therefore, we want to appreciate Tetfund for all that it has been doing to ensure that we can still stand tall. And I'm standing tall here, both metaphorically and also physically, to talk about our Nigerian universities and even other tertiary education systems. Let us not forget, and I know the representative of the minister, honorable minister, actually stood here to say that they were on the trenches, and the trenches actually struggling for this creation. Professor Atahiru Jega is still alive. In 1992, there was nothing that the military government didn't do in order not just to stop this intervention, but to kill ASU as a whole. But they stood firm. They sacrificed themselves. They they suffered. Some of them were arrested. Some of them were locked somewhere. But because of their steadfastness, because of their belief and the vision of the future of Nigeria, they stood firm until the ETF, which we now call Tetfund, was established. So, distinguished guests here, whatever we think and we talk about ASU, I think it is important that we always remember that if nothing else, ASU has created a fantastic baby that we today celebrate. Let me join the Executive Secretary and other speakers in appreciating His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for believing that without quality education, there will be no economic and social development, which he demonstrated by a number of critical and innovative initiatives in the education sector. The Honorable Chairman, Tetfund and other services actually indicated earlier on. I think for us, by the guts that Mr. President had to just remove that sunset clause, we will never forget Mr. President for doing that. Otherwise, we will have been in trouble, and the Nigerian tertiary education will have been in serious trouble. I know at several occasions we also had interactions with the National Assembly in order to put more pressure to ensure that succeeded. And we thank Mr. President and all those who have actually facilitated in ensuring that sunset clause is actually out of the tax bill. Distinguished members, when you look at just had the little testimonies that we have just seen, I think that that's actually demonstrated what I said, that without Tetfund, tertiary education institutions wouldn't have existed. This forum is not just another gathering. It is strategic. It is a strategic platform for dialogue, accountability, and collective visioning for the future of our higher education sector. And Tetfund has, over the years, played a pivotal role in transforming our tertiary institutions through infrastructural development, research, funding, capacity development, and innovation support. For this, I extend on behalf of the entire Committee of Vice Chancellors sincere commendation to the leadership of Tetfund for their consistency, foresight, and also impact in tertiary education. Today's conversation is particularly timely at a period when knowledge economies are driving global competitiveness. Our institutions must be empowered to produce cutting-edge research, foster innovation, and equip our youth with 21st century skills. And I believe that this engagement will further strengthen the collaborative bridge between the government, the academia, industry, and society. I urge all stakeholders here present to seize this opportunity to share ideas frankly and forge partnership boldly. And I want to thank the DG for really coming out here to demonstrate and to commit the ministry to Tetfund for such partnership. Tetfund interventions nationwide. Together, we can ensure that our tertiary institutions remain a catalyst for national transformation and sustainable development. Let me make one request, and this request is particularly to the National Assembly. distinguished senators and members of the House of Assembly, without proper budgeting for education, Tetfund will be overstretched. Being an interventionist agency, it is currently being overstretched. And therefore, if there's no appropriate budgeting for higher education system, Tetfund will cripple, and we will not see the impact that Tetfund is expected to provide and continue to provide. At the moment, Honorable Chairman, the budgetary nature of our institutions is in such a way that the core mandate of universities and higher educations are not really actually captured in the budget. What is being budgeted nationally is personnel, capital, and overhead. That is what is currently being budgeted. The overhead that is being budgeted, of course, I think it's the ES that actually said that. It's nothing to take home about, because it cannot even meet 1/10 of the overhead nature of institutions that we manage. The core mandate of the higher institutions is about teaching and research, and this is not budgeted. And in fact, without Tetfund that has been providing interventions in these areas, I believe that the research in this country will probably have been completely out of our tertiary institutions, because research requires funds to be able to do that. So I'm requesting the National Assembly to really intervene. I think that there's one most important thing that the National Assembly, I'm requesting to really understand and really help tertiary institutions. The budgetary nature of any other agencies, like the ministries, is not the same and can never be the same with tertiary education agencies, especially universities. The budgetary nature and the funding nature of it must completely be different. And I call upon you to really look at this particular aspect. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, once again, in conclusion, on behalf of the academic community, I extend best wishes for fruitful deliberations and impactful outcomes that will come out of this town hall meeting. And once again, I congratulate the chairman of the BOT, and indeed the members of the BOT, and the executive secretary of Tetfund, and the entire management of the Tetfund. Once again, thank you all, and good afternoon for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Tanko Ishaya, Chairman, Committee of Vice Chancellors. Now, Our Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a couple more messages. This time, let me invite the immediate past ASU President, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, to address the gathering. Let's appreciate him as he comes to the microphone.
Thank you. The Chairman, Board of Trustees, ES, Rep of Senate and House, kindly permit me to stand on existing protocol because of time. I'm standing on behalf of the President of ASU on this particular occasion. And I quickly talk on a number of issues. Number one, and the people have mentioned it so much, the issue of development levy and Tetfund. I think it's a breach of our agreement. Tetfund is supposed to stand on its own, and that levy should stand on its own. But But what we have done now, we have these implications. One is that, whether we like it or not, there is a reduction in fund allocation to Tetfund. If you say the level is 4%, and Tetfund is going to get 50%, therefore you have reduced it from 3% to 2%. So whether we like it or not, Tetfund allocation in percentage has reduced. And we should all accept that. That is one. Two, before now, and I must praise this ES, that the funds were allocated, were collected and indicated on a monthly basis. But now it's going to go to a pool that nobody will know how much is in that pool. And our fear is this. In the year 2013, when we have negotiation with Goodwill Jonathan on that president, on need assessment fund, we were told that government had given us 200 billion to renovate. Only for us to find out that money will acquire from a tool where you have Tetfund money. It was the Tetfund money that was collected. Till today, it still be refunded at a very small amount. So what we have done now, they have reduced Tetfund location. What we fought for during military and military accepted have been reduced by 1%. The past regime actually increased it from 2 to 3. Now it has been brought back to 2. We should know that very clearly. Then 3 is going to introduce bureaucracy in Nigeria. When you watch Nigeria, we must speak to ourselves the truth. We are still implementing 2024 budget. We are likely implementing 2023 budget as of today. If that is creep into Tetfund, it has crippled the Tetfund, which means you're going to go like that budget. But what we'll be having now is every year you get your money, every month. Also, there's a problem there. By our own, and what we have seen, what was allocated this year is not what was collected. Thank God we have the sources. What was allocated that was shared is not what was collected. And you can check. Actually, one of the agencies actually reported it. So what happened to the balance? Then the next one, the collection. And I must thank the princess, Onoha, for what she has done, although she has slowed down, I know why. As of today, many agencies, I don't know what I started, were not collecting the money. They were not paying. The era of Jonathan gave the banks 10 years, waiver, not to pay Tetfund money. And we actually have met on that, but I hope you will continue with that. And the Senate should also join. Let those banks pay that money. 11 years Tetfund money from all the banks will not give you less than 1 trillion. But they didn't pay. And some people took it forward. Even when the 10 years expired, they were still not paying. And they confirm it. So, and then you have some of these big men, big company in Nigeria not paying. What do? They run to the Minister of Finance, they give them tax waiver. They want to tie road to their village, tie road to their company. They give them tax waiver. And give that tax waiver, Tetfund money is also part of it. Which is not correct. When you look at those paying the heavy tax today, the big companies are those who are either foreign and what have you. Not our local one who are looking for, waiver here and there. So you can check. These are facts you can check. That is one. So we want to therefore recommend that Tetfund should, on monthly basis, publish how much was collected for Tetfund. They should also indicate companies that are paying, so that Nigeria will know those who are not paying. That way we'll know them. 2, as we speak so, and the princess is also aware, that there is a huge sum of money in Central Bank belonging to Tetfund, belonging to institutions that have not been utilized. Hope I'm right. That money is there. As the last time when we look at it, it was close to 600 billion. And none of those universities that misapplied this money, none of the vice chancellor or pro-chancellor have been punished. This is a public fund. The fund that was given to a university 15 years ago, maybe 1 billion. Today is about 100 billion. And that money was not used. And that money is there. So, sir, we also have to put measures in place to ensure that universities, VCs, councils, who are not using their fund well, are properly dealt with. As we speak, there are still some universities, polytechnic, and education that have 10 years backlog of money unused because those projects have been abandoned. We should not be only looking at the good side. When I was watching this film, I thought we were going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good one, the one middle, and the one that have been abandoned. I thought we were going to see the three. In this country, we should not be preaching only the good. We should talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then, because of time, I will not waste our time. Nelfund was not also part of Tetfund. But today, we have been told that money is being siphoned from Tetfund to Nelfund. And what is our idea about Nelfund? And thank God, what we were saying against Nelfund are now being, are now being said by Nelfund. Number one, we said it to be misused by universities. They were the first to report it, and so university collected money from students and still collected from Nelfund. That came from Nelfund. Then, now, one thing we also said when they were starting Nelfund, we said Nelfund will reduce admission into Nigerian university, not increase. And go and check. We are doing a survey, and the survey is very clear. Admission in Nigerian university is reducing. Only a few parents and students will take loan and be encumbered till they graduate. A report by Nelfund yesterday showed that if what some universities are charging now, some universities are charging, public universities are charging 2 million, 1.something million, 3 million as school fees because they can get the money from Nelfund. And when the student graduating, it's already owing 30-something million. According to Nelfund, how would that student pay? Many will commit suicide. And when we want to do Nelfund, this is the third year. How many students have been given this Nelfund? For my record, only 482,000 students have been given this money. In all Nigerian universities, polytechnic education, and that is less than 10% of Nigerian students, equivalent to 98.8 billion naira. And what is 98.8 billion naira to Nigerian government? What is that? And we keep on saying, if we are really serious, that money should be going to the poorest of the poor as grant, not loan, because many will not participate in loan, knowing what the future will stand for them. In those good old days, they could. In those good days, they could. Because you can take it and run away. But today, any money you are taking, government can collect it with your name. So what I was saying, that there is a need, one, to monitor how the fund is used. And that can only be done in two ways. One, when the law of Tetfund was passed in 1992-93, the decree then, ASU was made as a member of the board to also monitor it. But in 2011, under the leadership of Mahmoud, immediately past INEC, they tactically removed ASU and say universities. Tactically, and you are aware, go and look at the law. There too, we also found out that Tetfund is now being overstressed. That was what happened when we, in 2011, ASU had to go on strike to say, Tetfund, what you are doing, go to primary secondary school, is overstressed. Let's bring it back to Tetfund from ETF. We had to go on strike. And that was done. Today we are going there again. We are now funding Nelfund, funding student loan, funding this, creating that, creating this. We are going the same way. And before you know it, the impact will become little or nothing. There is a need to concentrate on what was the idea of Tetfund, not to bring what government should do as part of Tetfund. Tetfund is an intervention agency. It's not a funding agency. It's an intervention agency. But we are more turning it to the only funding source in Nigerian university. And then finally, we have to stop Tetfund. That until a university is 5 to 10 years old, it cannot access Tetfund. There should be a law. The law should be changed to make it that for any university to access Tetfund money, it should have existed for about 5 to 10 years. To stop this issue of Tetfund universities, to stop this establishment of community constituency project universities. You know them. You sit down for the National Assembly, you pass a law. You didn't even care how the thing was law. The president signed a new university. Let me give an example before I stop. Go to Zaria. Zaria have one of the best universities in Nigeria, ABU, with a very robust faculty of education. And I've asked myself, owned by federal government, why should federal government go and establish another university of education in Zaria? When that money, 1/3 of it, you give it to ABU, it will run a bigger faculty than that university. Go to Port Harcourt, the same. All over the place now, you're just establishing what we call shanty university. One, who are lecturing them? With what we are doing to lecturers today, lecturers are leaving. ABU said in 10 years, less than 10 years, 2,000 of their colleagues left. In 5 years, 2,000. So who will lecture those universities? On that note, let's be serious as a country. Finally, sir, with all due respect, I said this when the ES was organizing the program. We should be proud of our system. This type of ceremony should not hold in this type of occasion should not hold in a private institution. It should hold in a university, in a project built by Tetfund, not, what do you call it? What do you call this thing? Not this one. I said it that time, and Tetfund that time, he started doing it. We're meeting in Tetfund or NUC. We have done business as a university. We should believe in ourselves. If we want to hold it, if Abuja cannot, look for a university that can host it. Let a university host it. Go to the US and most countries, even when politicians are campaigning, where they do their, whatever you call it, is universities, not in private company. It's a waste of money. Thank you.
Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, immediate past ASU president. More like the fire still burns and the blood is still running hot with the activism of a unionist. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we've heard from a former ASU president. Let me invite also the immediate past president of COASU, Dr. Smart Olugweko.
Our distinguished chairman, please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. I am not the immediate past president of COASU, but I have just a day to become immediate past. So this is my first or my last public outing. Thank you. I want to appreciate the fund for giving us this unique opportunity to be here today during this town hall meeting. And before I leave, I want to leave us with a thought concerning tertiary institutions in Nigeria and the role of Tetfund. We've talked about the wonderful contributions of Tetfund to tertiary institutions in Nigeria. And we have all agreed that without Tetfund, we might not be talking about tertiary institutions anymore. That has remained a landmark issues that we continue to celebrate as far as this country is concerned. And if there's any good thing that we want to talk about in education in Nigeria, Tetfund has actually become that landmark, and we want to appreciate Tetfund for that. Honestly, we look at some of these issues, and we have not been able to appreciate the fact that there are some critical matters that are also of paramount importance that will help our country to be able to achieve the development we all desire. And that has got to do with the issue of teacher education. And most of the times, is an aspect that is being grossly neglected. And simply because we do not have the adequate knowledge of what willful neglect of teacher education is doing to this great country. We have talked about deliberate effort on the part of Tetfund and government at promoting many other aspects of our nation at the detriment of teacher education. And if we talk about teacher education, it remains the bedrock of our development. And until we take teacher education seriously, we might not be able to achieve the desired result. Recently, Tetfund has taken giant strides at ensuring that medical education is given a facelift in terms of provision of adequate facilities and equipment that will make it to compete with other colleges of medical sciences all over the world. But why this deliberate effort is being done at the level of the medical sciences and engineering, we have not been able to match it up with what are the deliberate efforts being taken to promote teacher education. And we know that the problems we have today has got to do with the problem of teacher education. And a country that is grappling with more than 20 million out of school youth will not survive kidnapping, banditry, armed robbery. And this has its remote cause as a result of the issue of teacher education. And we believe that as Tetfund is taking deliberate efforts in other areas, they should also look at the issue of teacher education, take deliberate effort to promote teacher education in colleges of education, in faculty of education, to the extent that we'll be able to produce teachers, people that are proud to be teachers and who are ready to teach our children. And it has been reported by Joint Admission and Matriculation Board that 2 courses, 2 programs are not being subscribed to by Nigerian students, and these are education and agriculture. And a nation that will develop and do not have its youth subscribing to teaching and agriculture is only playing to the gallery. And until we do something that will attract our youth to education, to teacher education, to agriculture, we might not have started at all. And this is very, very important to us as a nation. And the other aspect I quickly want to talk about is on the issue of monitoring. Most of the times, the monitoring we have done at the level of Tetfund has been posthumous. Posthumous in the sense that the havoc had been caused, even at the level of implementation, by some of the institutions before we actually go on monitoring. And I have been in some institutions whereby the EDVs, the money expended on those infrastructures, have not actually been utilized the way it's supposed to have been utilized because the monitoring was not done from inception. And we have said this, that monitoring should be institutionalized, even within each institution, whereby from conception level of projects to the level of completion, members of the institution should be part of the IMC that will monitor the project, and it is on the basis of the recommendation of their report that the subsequent release of funds should be predicated. But we discover that most of the times this has not been done. There is no institutionalization of the IMC, the monitoring concept at the level of the institution. And therefore, most of the things are done. Many projects have actually been completed without them actually being useful to the institution. And I believe that this is very, very important. And lastly, I want to commend also the Mr. President, the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, for approving for the first time, after many agitation from our union, that students that go on teaching practice should be paid stipends, monthly stipend, for them to be able to use during teaching practice. This is the first time in the history of this country that this has been approved. And this means a lot to us because there has been discrimination in this aspect. Why students who are in engineering, in other disciplines, when they go on internship or housemanship, whatever, they are being paid for going there. Why students who are teachers, who are in education, pay for going on teaching practice? But having talked and have conversation with the President, for the first time, our students who are going on teaching practice are also to be paid. And this has also been given as a task to Tetfund to accomplish. And we believe we should commence implementation of this in order to raise teacher education to the level by which it deserves. On this note, I want to say thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Smart Olubeko. Outgoing, if we might just correct that, as we had introduced him as immediate past president. He isn't. He's apparently got about 24 hours to go. So, outgoing President Kwasu. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chairman, Board of Trustees, Your Excellency, by your permission, we would proceed straight to the first of the presentations, which is on tertiary education in Nigeria and relevance of Tetfund. Earlier in the day, I'd seen the presenter of this paper is no other than Professor Umaru Pati, who's the Vice Chancellor of the Federal University of Kashiri. I do believe he is ready for that presentation because it is the first of the two will be taken here, the other being Tetfund in the eyes of the public, which will be presented by Professor Abubakar Rashid. But first is tertiary education in Nigeria and relevance of Tetfund. All right. And permit me to invite to the podium one of the finest communicators produced in this country, and I'm proud, I might use the term standing tall, even though I'm not that tall, to welcome to the podium my brother and friend, Professor Umaru Pati. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyril. The chairman of the fund, the chairperson of the House of Reps Committee on Tertiary Education, very eminent personalities, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let me start by thanking the chairman and the BOT, as well as the management of Tetfund, for finding me worthy to be invited for this function. I believe there could be 2 or 3 reasons why I think I'm qualified to share my experiences on the relevance of Tetfunds in this function. First, as a vice chancellor of a benefiting university, certainly I'll have testimonies to make on the relevance of Tetfunds to universities, particularly young universities like my own. Secondly, I was the immediate past vice chairman of the Tetfund Technical Advisory Group for about almost 2 years, apart from being a member of that committee for some time. And 3, I have been fairly associated with Tetfund from inception at different levels, either as a resource person, as a contributor, or in one form or another. So I should be able to make some statements on the relevance of Tetfund in the operations as well as sustenance of higher education in Nigeria. Hardly is there a country that could say it has completely addressed all its problems relating to higher education in its system. Not even the United States or Britain could say they have completely eliminated all the problems in their higher education system. And the reason is simple. Education is too resource intensive, too dynamic, and too important in determining the future of individuals as well as the future of nations. So at any point in time, education is revolving, being a dynamic institution in society. And in Nigeria, if we look at the history of higher education, there's one conclusion we can make. Nigerians love university education, no doubt about it. If you look at the history, starting from Ibadan, as far back as 1948 or thereabout, till date, the number of universities in this country has grown from 1 to more than 320-something as of today. And this is an indication that our people love education, particularly tertiary education, for the obvious advantages associated with higher education. From the 1980s, it has become evident that tertiary education in the country, like I've said, is hugely loved, but grossly starved of care, resulting in stress on access and quality. In other words, it is a matter of love without care. The care is decreasing while the number is expanding. And in very simple terms, expansion without quality is dangerous, just like how love without care is also dangerous. And this is our situation in the late 1980s when issues became so manifest that the sector became restless with growing demand in the face of declining or poor indicators in our economy. Expansion in number, expansion in demand, expansion in competition, population explosion, and poor cost recovery without corresponding expansion in what? In facilities and availability of competent individuals who could run the system as lecturers or even at the level of administration. And the consequences, as the DG of FRCN, who was my ASU chairman then in University of Maiduguri, said in the early 90s, became so clear with strikes all over the place, and a lot of other pressure points that almost undermine the quality and sustenance of higher education in this country. The problems are so numerous that we can go on and on listing. As part of agreement between government and ASU at the time, the idea of the tax education fund came up. In the midst of the tension in the educational system, the idea was brought as a hope to address and hopefully transform the educational system in the country. And that is how Tetfund, if we could all recall, came in 1993, with clear mandates on what Tetfund is going to do as an intervention agency. And of course, the source of income as at then was 2% from profitable income of companies, which now has become 3%. And the role of Tetfund is very clear. And anybody assessing Tetfund, particularly like my boss, Professor Rashid, is going to talk about later, in the eyes of the public in Nigeria, is the issue of the misunderstanding of the role of Tetfund as provided in its law. Some individual feels Tetfund is there to sustain and run our educational system. But going through the law, the mandate and the roles are clearly stated. 1, to fund infrastructure development, support academics and staff training, promote research, innovation, publication, sponsor ICT, revenue source, the 3% deductions. And for any vice chancellor of a university in Nigeria, there are 5, 6 to 7 key areas that are the major areas of attention for him or her. And what are the areas? Academic and physical development, quality assurance, staff and students' welfare, ICT development, funding, town and gown relationships. These are the major critical areas. And if you care to take a look at the Tetfund mandate, definitely it has major inputs into these critical areas. And for me, I see Tetfund as a strategic enabler in the educational system. Of course, I heard my chairman saying without Tetfund, there will be no tertiary education in Nigeria. I have my own difference on that. But I believe Tetfund can be described as an enabler that has considerably improved and enabled the system to be much better than what it was and how it should be. If we look at the first mandate, the issue of infrastructure, of course, we have seen from the presentations what Tetfund has been able to do to transform our campuses, lay very strong foundations for our buildings, structures, and all of that. And a lot of resources, more than $1 trillion, have been invested in that direction to build lecture halls, laboratories, hostels, libraries, and all of that. Importantly, human capital development. Again, I am going to give a whole slide on what so far Tetfund has been able to do in terms of training of our staff in the universities and polytechnics and colleges of education. Then, of course, the National Research and Development Fund, very, very important. And through that, research has been reinvigorated on our campuses. And a lot of resources also have been pumped. Otherwise, many of our quality lecturers wouldn't have had the opportunity of getting the resources required for them to undertake certain major research on our campuses. And this is helping Nigerian universities to be on the global radar of research. Of course, academic content. I was the immediate past vice chairman of the technical advisory group that was mandated to handle a lot of issues from Tetfund relating to book development, journals publication, and similar activities. In that regard, I know that a number of books in critical areas or disciplines on Nigerian universities have been sponsored by Tetfund, published by our colleagues in universities. Of course, journals or professional associations and disciplines within the universities are also being supported. And for us in the university, journals and book publications are very critical in the promotion or in growth, development, and promotion of academic content as well as quality assurance on campuses. Again, the relevance of Tetfund is visible and manifest. Universities or polytechnics or colleges of education on their own will have found it extremely difficult to support these activities from their own internally generated revenue, because looking at the budget that we get, a lot of these things are not supported. Of course, conferences. Many of our colleagues, and I'm going to give the statistics, of our colleagues have been able to attend international conferences, local conferences, national conferences. And that has helped to internationalize a number of our colleagues as well as our institutions, and also localize what is international on our campuses. Then, of course, others like workshops that are so regular for our administrators and lecturers are all over the place. And then, importantly, the support for entrepreneurship development and employability programs on our campuses, which many universities and institutions are enjoying, and giving opportunity to our students for them to learn and also equip themselves with the right skills before leaving campuses. Now, let's take a specific look. I may not go through all of them. Let me just take one out of all these mandates and see how far Tetfund has performed. Tetfund intervention in staff training is very, very critical. A university is known based on the quality, competence, and the confidence of its academic staff as well as its administrators. It's not the matter of just having a building. You can have all the buildings so long as you do not have quality lecturers. These buildings are simply projects with little impact on the quality of the training that we offer. But Tetfund is quite aware of that, and they have invested hugely. The statistics I've got, for example, here, between 2011 to 2024, Tetfund Scholarship Scheme has sponsored over 24,000 scholars from universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education to pursue PhDs. And without a PhD, in any Nigerian university, you cannot be a senior lecturer. If you are not a senior lecturer, you cannot be a professor. And you cannot have the opportunity of supervising an MSc or a PhD. Which means the quality of our staff is hugely supported by the training that we are able to give them. In other words, there's a correlation between the qualification of an academic staff with his output. So Tetfund has done well in that respect. Training 24,000 students within the period mentioned is not a joke. But not just for PhDs, but it has also within the same period trained about 18,000 candidates for MSc, MA, and other categories of master's degrees, maybe up to MPhil. Again, without masters, you cannot go for PhD. So you can see the linkage. Universities cannot run on graduate assistants. Universities cannot run on assistant lecturers. NUC goes to do accreditation every time, but we are not giving the required resources to also train these lecturers all over the world. And we cannot afford to localize our trainings within our campuses only to do what you call inbreeding. We have to cross-fertilize, and we must create opportunities for our colleagues to go elsewhere and acquire degrees for them to come and impact on what we have on our campuses. So again, the relevance of Tetfund to us is very, very clear. Of course, we'll continue to ask for more. But one serious thing which we are happy has been cleared now is the issue of stopping universities from employing because of likely we have existed from. Within that period, universities have stayed for 5-6 years, and colleges of education and polytechnics without employing their best graduates, without bringing in international scholars, or without bringing in, and within the same period, people have retired, people have died, people have left the system. And now we have huge gaps in several disciplines. Now, many of us are forced to employ. And the most worrying aspect is newer universities and colleges are being established on a daily basis without provision for training of their lecturers. So Tetfund may need to upgrade, upscale, and add more resources for the training of lecturers. Otherwise, the few that we have may simply not be able to continue to serve the system. But we are grateful for the number that we have as at now. Then conferences and workshops. Over 78,000 academics and tens of thousands others in the administrative aspect have been sponsored to attend various programs relating to capacity enhancement of what they have been doing in and out of Nigeria. Again, that has its own advantages in terms of exposure, in terms of linkages, in terms of networks, and in terms of improving on the attitude and aptitude of our colleagues. The NUC recently, under Professor Rashid, completely revamped, retooled, and upgraded the curriculum that we have been operating in our institutions. MBTE has done the same, but the quality of those who will be delivering remain the same, which means we must organize series of activities to upgrade the thinking of many of our colleagues, as well as upgrade the literature available for our students. So again, this is another very, very important and critical area relating to quality assurance. One thing in university management is quality assurance. Quality assurance is a silent area. If you don't talk, nothing happens. But the noisy areas usually are salaries, allowances. But the quality relating to library development, relating to quality of staff available, relating to their own capacity enhancement are usually silent. And these are areas where attention is being given and it should be added so that it will generally impact cumulatively on the quality of what we have been offering. Now, another very important and critical area of relevance of Tetfund to our institution is Tetfund and the digital transformation. The whole world is digitizing. Recently, we attended a conference where I represented the NUC, and outside Nigeria, we were told that in the next 5 years, there is the possibility that about 92 million will vanish from the map. And in the same time, or correspondingly, about 120 new million jobs will be created, courtesy of the internet, robotics, artificial intelligence, and the like. Now, it means our institutions must change to become institutions of innovation. They must retool, they must re-equip in terms of human capacity and in terms of the facilities for us to be able to train quality individuals that can be flexible and respond to the evolving needs in the digital scheme of things all over the world. Any university where the library must close, the laboratory must close after 3 o'clock, either because of electricity or because of whatever challenge, that university is not destined for greatness. The laboratory must remain open for 24 hours. The library must remain open for 24 hours. Unfortunately, it is not the story on our campuses as of today. Then the next, like I've said, digital transformation. Digital infrastructure, luckily, Tetfund is putting in a lot of resources in building smart classrooms, e-libraries, broadband internet, virtual labs, and all of that. Then research in the knowledge economy. The whole world is talking about knowledge economy now. And the chairman mentioned that in his speech. The Tetfund secretary mentioned, ES mentioned that. People are not talking about minerals any longer. People are talking about knowledge. And this is what is making countries like Taiwan and others great. And we have the resources. We have the talent. It's left for us to turn the Nigerian economy into the Nigerian economy. Into a knowledge-based economy. Luckily, again, issue of funding big data, AI-driven research, climate modeling, digital humanities are areas Tetfund is also funding. Again, education is a limitless area where whatever you put in, we will still request for more. Then, of course, capacity for innovation and startups, the career centers, the entrepreneur centers are opportunities where, again, resources are being pumped into. Then, global competitiveness. Universities are not local institutions. That is why a lecturer can leave a university like my own in Kashere and find himself in the US or in UK teaching because his knowledge is global-based knowledge. It's not Nigerian-based knowledge alone. And for us to improve that competitiveness in our colleagues, it means we have to encourage and support, like Tetfund is doing, our colleagues to publish in index journals, patent their inventions, and partner globally like we are doing. It has been doing that, but still more needs to be done. Then, of course, digital equity. The whole world is talking about digital equity. How can we bridge the digital gap between Africa and the rest of the world, and specifically between Nigeria and even at the level of the African standards with countries like South Africa. Bridging the gap is coming through Tetfund, but Tetfund alone cannot do that. It means we have to do more. So if we are to summarize on all of these benefits, first, financing of thousands of physical infrastructure projects. This is one major relevance, and we have seen it, and we are feeling it. Number two, academic staff growth in institutions through additional qualifications, masters, PhDs, and other qualifications. And of course, it has also helped to sustain quality and standard. Without quality, without standards, our degrees and qualifications will be worthless. And this is one thing that we have to guard jealously, and it cannot be guarded, it cannot be established except through quality inputs. And quality inputs require resources, require personnel, and require discipline and leadership. Then, of course, it has also increased the visibility of Nigerian universities. Our scholars are all over the world, either as fellows or as conference attendants, or sometimes even among those that have schooled using Tetfund resources, finding themselves outside. There are the benefits and the negative aspects of it. We have many of our colleagues that have benefited from Tetfund but have absconded. Yes, they have absconded, but in a way, they are also representing Nigeria intellectually. We are telling the world that we have quality people from Nigeria also. It is not just about 419. It is not just about negativity, but we also have scholars from our universities who are also in international universities. So this is one of the advantages, despite the disadvantage of losing Nigerian money. But the fact is they are Nigerians. Then the training window is strengthening diversity and inter-Nigerian university collaboration and relationships and linkages. This is very, very important. You could see that gradually we are provincializing and localizing education in this country, where a student or a chap can start from, let's say, campus of Abuja here. He will attend the nursery in Abuja, nursery in primary school in Abuja University, secondary school Abuja University, University of Abuja, NYSC in Abuja, and he will be serving Nigeria in one of the big offices in Nigeria. And this is not good for us. It could also happen in any other states. Go to any states. People don't know anywhere in Nigeria. And today they become lecturers in universities. But by sending them on training, even if they cannot go outside, from Kashere, I send someone to Ibadan, I send him to University of Lagos, send him to University of Nigeria and Nsukka, and someone from Nsukka coming to BUK, from Lagos coming to BUK. In a way, they get to know about Nigeria. And many people are encouraged because they could get Tetfund funding. Without Tetfund funding, the universities may not give them what they may require to go and stay outside of their own state. At the end of the day, we have people who are BA, MA, PhD, one university, in fact, from primary school. And then they'll be teaching about Nigerian geography, Nigerian history, Nigerian this, Nigerian that, without the knowledge of Nigeria. So, in a way, Tetfund is also helping to bring in diversity, help to strengthen Nigeria's unity through education. And education has always been an instrument of national integration for us. And then, of course, reducing of tension in universities and institutions and building in harmony in the system. People can publish books, people can publish in journals, and through that they could get promotions and become professors, and in a way, reduce the tension sometimes that we experience on our campuses. So these are some of the advantages, but there are also challenges. Few of the challenges, one is unequal readiness across institutions. My president of ASU talked about it, where he advocated that at least a university should stay for 5 years before starting accessing funding. Well, this is his own opinion, which some people may not necessarily accept. But the truth is, some universities are far more developed than others. And the resources given to younger ones may not necessarily be equal with the ones given to the older ones who already are fully matured, they have everything. And then universities like my own that are just growing, where we need far more resources. So this issue of unequal access, there should be another examination. Then weak maintenance culture on many of our campuses. This year, Tetfund has given money for maintenance, but we have also a lot of resources pumped in by Tetfund, but are poorly maintained on some of our campuses. That is a challenge also. Then, of course, issue of electricity. We have invested to build huge laboratories, purchase expensive equipment, but poor maintenance because of absence of electricity. Some of these things are damaged. Some are completely left unused by our students. We have computer laboratories where students can hardly use them because of what? Electricity. And of course, the internet bandwidth. Like some of these are rural universities where we have huge challenges accessing the internet, despite the investments made to sustain our campuses. And of course, risk of academic dependency. Some universities have become so dependent on Tetfund. Some state governments have established universities without end, simply because they know they can access Tetfund resources. And that is promoting culture of dependency among state governments and among some institutions in society. So again, that too is an issue. Then of course, public perception, like I've talked about, which I believe Professor Rashid is going to further expatiate. There is a mixed understanding on the role and operational framework of Tetfund. People believe that Tetfund has all the money, so it should be able to provide the prescription and medicine for all the problems. And that is not so. And like we see in many states, they have completely abandoned the capital inflow into their institutions, polytechnics and colleges of education, or they go to Tetfund. And even where the Tetfund money is given, some of them corner it for some other issues. And at the end of the day, you have poor delivery of services. And there are a number of complaints from Tetfund which they also write to institutions. Cases of beneficiaries absconding after being trained, then institutional breaching of Tetfund's guidelines. We have disobedience to directives of the fund as it relates to beneficiary institutions. A number of cases where resources have been misapplied, projects not properly executed, and there are a number of issues surrounding certain institutions. It's a challenge. And finally, the recommendations, of course, Tetfund has become a transformational enabler for higher education in Nigeria, no doubt about it. It is appreciated hugely by the stakeholders, by those of us who are directly involved. We will always remain grateful, but we'll still advise for more. One, we need to deepen the investments in digital areas on our campuses. We need to put in a lot more resources to digitize our campuses. And digitizing our campuses means a lot. It's a whole chain for us to also be on the global map like any other university internationally. Then, of course, supporting cutting-edge research, increase the current support for AI, cybersecurity, renewable energy, and security matters in the country. We need to do far more research, and we need commissioned studies that can help us in solving many of our problems in this country. Again, our interventions should be far more focused. Then, of course, continue and enhance the capacity development activities on our campuses, training of PhDs, masters, and specialized trainings. I remember there was a time we discussed with some officers in Tetfund on organizing seminars for the training of supervisors of PhDs and masters on our campuses. Many of our colleagues need specialized knowledge and capacity on how to supervise PhDs and masters. It's not just enough for you to be promoted and then candidates are sent to you for training. You also need some exposure. So at the time, we agreed that Tetfund should be able to support activities on our campuses for these kind of things, but it is not yet a reality. And finally, issue of policy and governance. We need to continuously review policies in Tetfund as well as in our relationships for flexible fund disbursement, accountability, and sustainability. These are very, very critical areas. If the conditions are so difficult in such a way that institutions cannot access. What you may have is the kind of complaint that monies are locked up in the central bank. Or if institutions are not utilizing their resources properly, again, we are going to have issues. My former president of ASU clearly spoke on that issue. Very soon, I will be inviting, inshallah, the chairman of Tetfund to come and see or to flag off the beginning of MBBS medical training in University of Kashere very, very soon. And he will see how we use Tetfund resources to acquire equipment. While we got the intervention for the building of the structures from the federal government, but the resources for the equipping of the place came majorly from Tetfund. Over 500 million naira from Tetfund for equipment just to train medical doctors in that institution. And I will be proud to invite you. The Minister of Health was there to commission the building. We will be proud to invite you to come and also flag off the first set of MBBS, anatomy, physiology, biochemistry students in our university, in our rural setting in Kashere. And you will see where Tetfund resources have been effectively utilized as confirmed by Mr. Ochono when he visited. On this note, let me once again thank the chairman, thank all the board members, and thank Tetfund for remaining committed and having faith and patience in the Nigerian educational system. We trust that you will continue to support us. We trust you will continue to have patience and trust that we are doing the right thing. Nigerian universities are ranked, even if some people say no, we know we are doing far, far, far more. 98% of Nigerian students are in Nigerian universities. And finally, let me also thank Mr. President for Nelfund. We may have our own opinions about Nelfund, but in my universities, 8,000 students are benefiting from Nelfund, and I know what that money means for a small village like Kashere in terms of improving the economy of the students and in terms of improving the economy of the university and the economy of the area. On this note, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Professor Umaru Pate, Vice Chancellor, Federal University of Kashere, presenting our first paper here, The Tertiary Education in Nigeria and Relevance to Tetfund. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there's a second presentation, and this is Tetfund in the eyes of the public. Join me as I invite to the podium Professor Abubakar Rashid, who is the next presenter. Thank you very much. Let's appreciate him as he comes to the microphone. Thank you.
The Chairman, Board of Trustees of Tetfund, Your Excellency Alhaji Aminu Bello Masari, other Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is both an honor and a personal privilege to stand before this distinguished gathering at a time when our nation is engaged in critical conversations about the future of higher education. Our coming together today is not merely another stakeholders forum organized by Tetfund. It is a moment of reflection, accountability, and renewed hope. I am especially grateful to His Excellency Alhaji Aminu Bello Masari, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, for inviting me to contribute to this national discourse. We are happy that his leadership of the fund, drawn from decades of public service at the highest levels, continues to lend credibility and gravitas to the work of this remarkable institution and reflects his enduring commitment to national development, especially through tertiary education. Let me also acknowledge the unwavering commitment of Dr. Soni Echeno, Executive Secretary of Tetfund, whose stewardship reflects both the technical insight of a seasoned administrator and the passion of a reformer. Distinguished Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, the Tertiary Education Trust Fund has emerged as one of the most enduring institutional innovations in Nigeria's public sector reform landscape. Conceived as a response to the chronic underfunding of tertiary education, it has evolved into a symbol of transparency, accountability, and effectiveness in the deployment of public resources for national development. Over the years, Tetfund has become synonymous with tangible impact, with its name emblazoned on lecture halls, laboratories, libraries, and research centers across the country. The purpose of this lecture, Tetfund in the eyes of the public, is to explore the evolution, achievements, and reputation of this remarkable institution. It seeks to examine how the fund has earned the trust of Nigerians, why it continues to enjoy public goodwill, and what steps are necessary to sustain its credibility in the years ahead. While Tetfund's operational mandate is technical, mobilizing and disbursing the 3% education tax levied on the profits of registered companies, its broader significance is moral and symbolic. It demonstrates that where integrity, discipline, and professionalism guide public institutions, development is possible, even within the constraints of Nigeria's often challenging government environment. The lecture draws on both documentary evidence and lived experience. Between 2016 and 2023, during my tenure as Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission, I had the privilege of working closely with Tetfund and its Board of Trustees, witnessing firsthand the discipline of its administrative processes and the breadth of its impact. Yet, the reflections presented here are not official pronouncements, but rather an informed appreciation of what the fund has come to represent to Nigerians, a credible public institution that has defied cynicism and restored faith in a government agency's capacity to deliver. In what follows, I shall trace the historical evolution of the fund, outline its achievements and milestones, discuss its administrative and accountability frameworks, and reflect on how it has earned the confidence of the Nigerian public. The lecture also looks ahead by proposing strategies to preserve Tetfund's credibility, consolidate its gains, and ensure that it continues to play a transformative role in the nation's educational and developmental agenda. Historical evolution. Tetfund represents one of the most innovative and impactful institutional responses to the crisis of funding and quality in Nigeria's tertiary education. Its roots can be traced to the early 1990s, when Nigeria's universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education were in the throes of near collapse. Infrastructure had deteriorated, laboratories were obsolete, libraries were empty, and morale among academic staff had fallen to its lowest ebb since independence. This decline provoked deep concern among stakeholders, particularly the Academic Staff Union of Universities, which began to champion the creation of a special fund to rescue the system. During those dark days, ASU did not merely protest, it proposed a solution. ASU did not only resist decline, it offered alternatives. One of the most visionary of these alternatives was the idea of setting aside a dedicated education tax levied on the profits of large companies and channeled exclusively towards revitalizing public tertiary institutions. The intellectual and moral basis for ASU's demand was reinforced by the report of the Longe Commission on the review of higher education in Nigeria, which identified chronic underfunding as the root cause of declining quality and called for the introduction of alternative sustainable financing mechanisms. Following prolonged advocacy, negotiations, and national debate, the federal government enacted the Education Tax Act No. 7 of 1993, establishing the ETF as a dedicated intervention agency. The act mandated all companies registered in Nigeria to pay a 2% tax on their assessable profits, with proceeds devoted exclusively to education. The ETF was to collect, manage, and disburse these funds to all levels of education, primary, secondary, and tertiary, for rehabilitation, infrastructure development, and instructional improvement. Although ETF represented a bold policy innovation, its wide mandate soon became a source of limitation. The resources mobilized were spread too thinly across multiple sectors, thereby reducing the potential for strategic impact. Evaluations conducted during the early years of this millennium revealed that while many projects had been executed, the interventions lacked the focus necessary to achieve systemic transformation. In response to these findings, and in consultation with stakeholders, the federal government undertook a far-reaching reform. This culminated in the enactment of the Tetfund Act No. 16 of 2011, which repealed the earlier Education Tax Act and restricted the fund's operations exclusively to public tertiary institutions, that is, universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. This transition marked the formal birth of Tetfund as it is known today. The 2011 Act redefined Tetfund's mandate to focus on interventions in 6 critical areas of infrastructure, academic staff training, research, library development, ICT support, and institutional-based research and innovation. It also established a board of trustees as the governing authority with clear statutory responsibility for policy direction, approval of disbursements, and oversight of project implementation. The transformation from ETF to Tetfund thus reflected a maturing understanding of the strategic role of tertiary education in national development. By narrowing its scope and strengthening its governance architecture, the fund became more effective, focused, and accountable. ASU's role in this transformation remains central to the fund's legacy. It was ASU's persistent advocacy that ensured the establishment of a dedicated education tax and its ring fencing for the tertiary sector. The union's position was guided by the conviction that no nation can rise above the quality of its education, and that education funding should be seen not as expenditure, but as investment in human capital. Over the years, the Tetfund model has become a reference point for other African countries exploring sustainable funding mechanisms for higher education. Its story illustrates the power of visionary leadership, stakeholder collaboration, and institutional resilience in overcoming structural challenges. The fund's establishment, therefore, marked a historic turning point in Nigeria's education financing framework. It gave substance to the long-held aspiration of linking corporate taxation to national development, embodying a moral and social compact between government, industry, and the people. I will briefly discuss this section on achievements and milestones. Since its transformation in 2011, Tetfund has emerged as one of Nigeria's most successful public institutions and a model of effective resource management in Africa. Over the years, it has become synonymous with tangible, measurable impact in the development of tertiary education infrastructure, human capacity, and research capability. Across the length and breadth of Nigeria, Tetfund's imprint is visible in classrooms, libraries, laboratories, offices, research centers, and digital hubs. The agency has been described as the single most consistent force for the rejuvenation of Nigeria's tertiary education system since independence. The following are some of the most important achievements recorded by the fund since its rebranding. First, infrastructural renewal and expansion. And I think a lot has been said by previous speakers. I will only say that between 2011 and 2022, Tetfund financed over 152 infrastructure projects across federal and state universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. And this is according to a Tetfund report of 2022. This, I will move to the second factor here, the human capacity development. I said a second major area of impact is in academic staff training and development. Recognizing that physical infrastructure alone cannot sustain educational quality, Tetfund has consistently invested in the professional growth of academic staff through its academic staff training and development. Between 2011 and 2022, again, quoting Tetfund report of 2022, the fund sponsored more than 35,000 academic staff for postgraduate studies, both locally and overseas. The academic staff training has replenished the human resource base of Nigerian tertiary institutions by enabling lecturers to obtain higher qualifications, gain international exposure, and build research capacity. This intervention has been especially important in supporting younger academics and addressing the generational gap in scholarship created by decades of neglect. The third pillar is strengthening research and innovation, and I will only say, since its establishment, the Nigerian National Research Fund has funded over 700 multidisciplinary research projects across all fields of knowledge, including health, agriculture, energy, and information technology. The next pillar is that of knowledge production and publication support. And here, I argue that Tetfund's Book Development Fund has significantly revitalized indigenous scholarship. Through grants for academic publishing, it has supported the production of hundreds of textbooks and journals authored by Nigerian scholars. Prior to this intervention, most university curricula depended on imported materials, often outdated and contextually irrelevant. By strengthening the publication ecosystem, including the resuscitation of moribund university presses and creation of peer-reviewed journals, Tetfund has contributed to reclaiming the intellectual autonomy of Nigerian academia. The next pillar is ICT, digital infrastructure, and innovation. And of course, my previous speakers have commented on the centrality of ICT to any effort to knowledge management in the world today. The next pillar, equity and zonal balance, a resource allocation. Tetfund's commitment to fairness and zonal equity has been one of its most admired qualities. Allocations are guided by transparent criteria that ensure every beneficiary institution receives proportionate funding according to its category and status. The fund's disbursement formula, approved by its Board of Trustees and published annually, has insulated it from political manipulation and regional bias. Under the formula, for example, all interventions are made based on equality of institution and equality of state criteria. This implies that funds are allocated equally among the institutions in each of the tiers of the tertiary education on a 2-1-1 basis. The universities are treated as equals within themselves. The example I always give is Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, with about 65,000 students, will receive the same fund as Federal University of Health Sciences, Funtua, when it commences operations and enrolls its first set of undergraduates sometime this year. Polytechnics and colleges of education are also treated equally amongst the beneficiary institutions. In addition, states are also treated as equals irrespective of the number of institutions owned by the states. So if a state has 10 state universities, another has 1, they will be receiving the same money. This one will be continuously funded, while that one will be rotated amongst the states. So this principle of fairness has therefore contributed immensely to the fund's reputation. By ensuring that all institutions in all regions benefit equitably, Tetfund has strengthened the sense of national cohesion and inclusiveness within the education sector. The next one is promoting quality assurance and institutional governance. And here is just to argue that Tetfund has been supporting initiatives aimed at improving quality assurance and governance, working closely with the NUC, NBTE, and NCCE, and so on. The next one is recognition as a model of public sector accountability. Tetfund's meticulous approach to financial management has earned it wide commendation from the Office of Auditor General of the Federation and other oversight bodies. The fund's consistent record of audited financial statements and its insistence on due process have distinguished it as one of the few Nigerian agencies with a clean audit profile, according to Tetfund report of 2022. In sum, Tetfund's achievements over the years transcend mere funding disbursements. They reflect a deeply institutionalized culture of transparency, planning, and performance measurement. By aligning its activities with the National Education Policy and the SDGs, Tetfund is working hard to reposition Nigeria's tertiary institutions as engines of innovation and human capital formation. Now, fund administration and accountability. One of the most striking features of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, and a major reason for its strong public reputation, is the credibility of its administrative and accounting systems. In an environment where public trust in government institutions is often eroded by perceptions of inefficiency and corruption, Tetfund stands out as a model of transparent, rules-based governance. Its operational ethos is grounded in the principles of equity, accountability, and integrity enshrined in its enabling law and reinforced by a culture of institutional discipline, as explained in the following positive attributes. And these ones are: one, institutional architecture and governance framework. The law has clearly established two distinct but complementary bodies, the Board of Trustees and the management, and allocated powers and responsibilities. And this structure ensures a clear separation of functions between policy making, operational management, and financial control, a key factor in maintaining institutional integrity. The second pillar here, financial management and audit culture, we have already made comments, and others have made comments about it, that the fund operates an annual budgeting cycle that includes strategic planning, project vetting, financial appropriation, and independent auditing. Every intervention project is monitored